Welcome to Auction Version 4, the event management software tool from Auction Systems. This video in the Documents playlist is about bid sheets. This is a classic silent item bid sheet. You may or may not have all these parts on your bid sheet, and your bid sheet may be bigger or smaller. But let's look at what's available. At the top of the bid sheet is the item number in short description or catalog title if different than the short description. This is always on a bid sheet. Next we have an image associated with the item. If you have a saved image in the item entry form for a specific item, you can add an image to a bid sheet. And you can also add other images, such as your organization's logo and the donor's company logo. I will show these later in this presentation. Next we see the full description of the item, then the donor and donor value, then the bid lines, and if you're using guaranteed bid, that block will appear above the name of your organization. The name of your organization cannot be changed or removed. This information comes from your license to use Auction. So now let's look at how to create a bid sheet in Auction version 4. To get to bid sheets, on the main home task ribbon, click Documents, and then Item Documents, and then Bid Sheets. This is the Select Document screen, and you will see this when you first go to bid sheets. There are three parts to the left side of this screen. The top part relates to the bottom part, so we'll start at the bottom. If you have a saved custom bid sheet format, it will be here at the bottom. If you have printed a bid sheet in the past without saving it, last printed will remember what that bid sheet looked like. Clicking on a Save Custom Format or Last Printed will reload that format. But when you saved or last printed a format, you also have some item selection criteria associated with the format, which brings us to the top of this panel. If you want to load the format and the item selection criteria, this is the default and it's selected for you. But you can click the button to only load the format and not this item selection criteria before picking last printed or your custom format. If you want to create a bid sheet from scratch, choose the appropriate paper size by clicking on it. This takes us to the bid sheet formatting screen. At the top is the ribbon. The first four buttons tell you how you got to this screen. The Select Format button on the top does the same thing as the Select Document on the left. It causes the document choices you had in the previous screen to fly out from the left. If you need to change the bid sheet size and start over, click either of these buttons. The Page Setup button does the same thing as the Customize Page Setup button on the left. It causes a panel to fly out from the left. In this menu, you can change the paper orientation from portrait to landscape. You can change the paper size from letter to legal if your paper stock is not letter size. You can also change the margins and pick the image quality for any images you would like to include. Good quality is sufficient for bid sheets and will take up less memory. The Fonts button is also the same as the vertical Fonts button on the side. The Fonts button causes a Fonts panel to fly out from the left where you can change the font and font size for any parts of the bid sheet from the default to something different. Next on the ribbon we have this grid button labeled Num Page. If you want to make a half-sheet portrait or landscape bid sheets and cut the paper after it comes out of the printer, you can select that document type, and then you will see only the top two left squares in this grid lit up in yellow. But some organizations want to print three really narrow and short bid sheets on a page. That is where this button comes in handy. Start with Letter Single Column Bid Sheet Format. Click Page Setup and change the orientation to Landscape. Set the left and right margins fairly small, about 0.5 inches in each direction. Then, in this Num Page grid, make sure the top square in each column is yellow. Your bid sheets will come out with 3 items on a page. This is ideal for retail items. If you have a lot of retail items, you may want to photocopy the page before cutting it. And then every time a bid sheet fills up on the event night, it gets sent back to data entry so winning bids can be entered. For retail items, if you print a bid sheet with lots of lines on it, that would be a lot of winning bid entry, often at the very end of the event. Having smaller bid sheets for their retail items and then entering winning bids each time a sheet fills up throughout the event is more efficient. The print section of the ribbon is next. If you need to print multiple copies of the bid sheets, put the number of copies here. No collate means that if you're printing the bid sheets for multiple items at once, every copy of the first item will come out before the bid sheets for the next item will come out. Collate means that one bid sheet for each item will print first, and then the next set of bid sheets will print. Preview All is different than the preview on the screen. Clicking this button will cause a preview of the bid sheets for every item in your list to pop up in front of the formatting screens. You can scroll left and right through the preview to see all the bid sheets before printing. This preview will pop up in a new window that normally pops up in front of the current screen, but occasionally on some people's monitors it will pop up behind and you can't see it. If it does pop up behind, you may think that Auction has stopped working, but really it's only waiting for you to look at the preview and then close it. Look at the bottom of your monitor if this happens, and you will see the icons of all the applications that are running. Hover your mouse over the Auction gavel icon, and if there is more than one screen, you will see a glimpse of both. Pick the one that looks like the preview by clicking on it, and it should bring it forward to the front of the screen. The print button has an arrow that means that there is more than one choice associated with the button. In this case, the choice is to print only the bid sheet for the selected item in the list of items in the formatting screen below, or to print all the items in the list. Save allows you to save the item selection criteria and the design of the bid sheet as a custom document. If the Save button is not enabled, click the Hint button to find out why. Panels Open opens all the formatting panels, which I will show you next in this presentation, and Panels Closed closes all the panels. Below the ribbon, on the left, are some panels. The first panel is for item selection. Inside this panel on the left is the item type, and since generally bid sheets are for silent items, silent is the item type selected. But if you want to create a bid sheet for a different type of item, simply click on the appropriate button to turn it dark. Remember, dark buttons are turned on, light buttons are turned off. You could print the same type of bid sheet for all silent items, or you can make the bid sheet for just certain items in the broad type selected on the left. You do this by using the Refine pull-down. There are lots of choices in the Refine pull-down. One refinement, already selected for you, is Included Event. You may have decided not to include some items that were donated this year in this year's event. Include or Exclude from the event is one of the choices in the data entry form for an item. Other refinements that you can also choose from may be Category, and you can limit the item selections just items in a certain category. You do not need to refine further, but if you want to limit this particular list that these bid sheets will be printed for, add any refinements you need. In the middle is the list of items that fit your item selection criteria. If you have a bunch of items in this list, Print All will print the bid sheet for all the items in the list. Preview All will preview all the items in the list. My project you see here has only one silent item that fits the criteria, but if there were more, all would appear here. On the right is a preview of one selected item in the list. This is only the preview of one item, and it's there so you can see what a bid sheet might look like for one item, but it is never a preview of all your items. If you want to pick a different item to preview, just select it by clicking on it in the list. This preview is connected to the buttons on the bottom of the screen. These buttons along the bottom control that preview. When you don't want to see this on-screen preview, click On Demand and the preview will go away. When the After Idle button is selected, you can set the timing for how fast the preview on screen will refresh if you make a change to any of these panels. The default is every 2 seconds. I find this 2-second timing really annoying if I'm making lots of changes because the screen will constantly be blinking on and off as the preview refreshes. So when making lots of changes, change this timing to at least 60 seconds. Then, if it does not refresh immediately after the last change, click the Update Preview button and force the refresh. This button will also turn the preview back on if you had turned it off by clicking On Demand. And of course, the Default Timing button pops up a screen where you can change the default update timing to whatever timing you want instead of 2 seconds. But remember, if you change this default setting in the program settings, it will set the new timing for every preview on any document or report formatting screen, so be sure to set it for a reasonable number of seconds if you're going to make it permanent, or others who open your project may not ever see a refresh and might not know to click Update Now to force a refresh. They will just think that changes do not do anything to the preview on the screen. The next panel down below Item Selection is the Header Information panel. You don't need to have a header, and in fact headers are not often added to bid sheets, but if you need to add some text to the top of your bid sheet or your organization's logo, this is where you do it. The one thing you cannot change is the name of the licensed organization. This is connected to your license. However, if you do not include a header on your bid sheet, the organization name will appear at the bottom of the bid sheet. And you can add a project image like your organization's logo to the top of the bid sheet or to the top left or right of the organization name. And you can add more text to the top of the bid sheet here. This text will appear on every bid sheet using this format. The next panel is for Item Information Layout. You can include the item image above the item title, below the item number and short description, to the left or right of the full description, or below the full item description. The size of the item image is controlled by the image size here. You can include the item type and number, such as Silent 101 or just the item number 101. You can also include the full item description, and if the item is a basket, you can include the contents of the basket. You can also include item notes. The only way any of this information can appear on a bid sheet is if you include it in the item entry form for the item itself. The only way to edit the item information on a bid sheet is to edit the item entry form for the specific item. Next, in the same Item Information panel, you can include a donor image to the left or right of the donor name. Donor images are saved in the name entry form for the specific donor. You can include the donor name and also add some other information like category, donor value, or minimum bid. Other information about the item is also available in these pull-downs. Last, we have Bid Area Setup. On a bid sheet, after any item and donor information you include, you will have bid lines. This is the bid area. The bid lines can either start a specific number of carriage returns below the donor information, or you can start a certain distance in inches from the top of the page. There will be a header on top of these bid lines. The header can say bid number, bid name, and bid amount. If you don't need name, you can turn that off. If you have a barcode reader device for scanning bid amount, you can also turn on barcode. And then, next to the pre-printed bid amount will be another column with that amount in barcode. You can also change the header wording by typing in your own wording here. If you have a full page as the layout for your bid sheet, you may want 2 columns of bid lines. If you don't want pre-printed bid amounts on the bid sheet, you can turn that off. If you're using guaranteed bid on items, you can choose to universally omit the guaranteed bid if you want, or you can print only if the item has been entered with a guaranteed bid. Once you have the bid sheet as you like it, save it on the ribbon and it will be there if you need to print more bid sheets with the same format. Thank you for joining us.